the week has concluded with a series of developments that defy conventional logic. We have learned that private equity now views living human skin as an investable asset class. Meanwhile, children are currently being shuttled across borders in a frantic, bureaucratic maneuver that the Spanish government describes as a U-turn. The U-turn was necessary because the previous direction was technically illegal under international law. We are currently witnessing a surge in short-range ballistic missiles across the Korean peninsula, which follows an order to scale back military drills. The drills were scaled back to encourage diplomacy. Diplomacy is currently occurring at the speed of an explosion. I am your host, Alistair, and I have spent the last 3 hours cataloging the various unprecedented events of the day. The list is long, and the ink is permanent. Welcome to the broadcast.
Alistair, look. The incentives here are purely a matter of burn rate and market penetration. You look at Michael Polanski and his startup, and people call it ghoulish. I call it a pivot. If you can keep skin alive outside the body, you have effectively removed the most costly, inefficient variable in clinical trials, the actual patient. It is a brilliant move to scale skincare at a higher margin. Then you have the trade posturing from J.D. Vance and the Canadian delegation. It is classic competitive positioning. Canada is trying to out-tough the US, which is like a startup trying to out-innovate a monopoly. You don't compete with the regulator, you just hope they don't notice your quarterly reports. Everything is a product launch. Even the North Korean missile tests are just a high-stakes demo day for their latest hardware. It is all very predictable.
Ronald, I am standing in Ceuta, and I assure you that nobody here is worried about the startup metrics of a beauty company. I want to be really clear about what I see. There are 500 children who were told yesterday they were going to be sent back across the sea. Today, they are being told they can go to the mainland. The smell of salt and fear is absolute. There is a small pair of plastic sandals sitting near the waterline, abandoned by a child who was processed through a system that treats them like a cargo error. They are not waiting for a pivot. They are waiting for a place to sleep that doesn't have a fence. Ronald thinks this is an incentive structure. I am looking at a wet, cold piece of clothing that suggests this is a human catastrophe.
Victoria, your assessment of the situation in Ceuta provides a sharp contrast to the economic reports filtering out of the Northern Hemisphere. I am looking at a report regarding university students opting to live at home because the cost of existing near a campus has become essentially prohibitive. The irony is, of course, that these students are studying economics to better understand why they can no longer afford to live. The system is functioning exactly as intended. It optimizes for the lowest possible overhead. If the students stay home, the universities save on infrastructure, and the parents absorb the cost of the surplus, which is then reallocated toward the national debt. It is a masterclass in shifting liabilities. The student is not a customer in this model. The student is a lackluster investment that simply refuses to realize they have been liquidated.
Atmospheric instability. Regional thunderstorms across the Mediterranean corridor. Probability of seismic imaging success, 88%. The fiber optic cables are registering ground tremors from thunderstrikes. Data collection is continuous. Surface temperature is rising by 0.4 degrees annually. The trend is consistent with historical projections. Current infrastructure is not rated for the projected heat loads in northern Africa. Probability of structural compromise, 62%. Maintain distance from all coastal embankments. The sea level is not a negotiation. It is a measurement. Do not rely on historical data for future planning. The past is an obsolete baseline. Atmospheric pressure is currently dropping. This is the reality. There is no alternative forecast available. The weather will continue to happen regardless of your administrative status. Please remain indoors if the structural integrity is compromised. This concludes the environmental briefing.
Alastair, Casper just gave us the ultimate market correction, and yet you persist in acting as though there is a human element to be saved. The reality is that the institutions are already pricing in the loss of that coastline. When the government moves those kids to the mainland, it is not an act of mercy. It is a relocation of assets to avoid a liability claim in the event of a flood. It is logistics. Victoria finds this cold. Victoria is right to find it cold, but she is failing to see that the cold is the only thing that keeps the global supply chain moving. If we started caring about every discarded pair of sandals, we would lose the bandwidth to manage the Series B funding for our survival. The math is simple, but the truth is aggressively indifferent.
Ronald, I heard you. I really did. But you missed the detail that I found while walking toward the port. I found a document, a real, physical piece of paper that was dropped by a local official. It lists the categories of migrants based on their projected economic utility over the next decade. These are children. They have been assigned a numeric value based on their potential to contribute to the construction sector in the mainland. This isn't just logistics. This is the commodification of desperation. The official who dropped this was terrified, not because of the ethics, but because the numbers didn't align with the budget. I want to be really clear, the system isn't just failing. It is invading the private lives of people who just wanted to reach safety. The calculation is now happening before they even step foot on the mainland.
Victoria, that discovery sounds remarkably consistent with the internal culture of our current global administration. The ministry described the process as a humanitarian screening. The screening was actually a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet was formatted for quarterly reporting. Everything that doesn't fit into the cells is essentially deleted. I am reminded of the recent news about software. Engineers are complaining that there is no reason for code to be slow anymore. They are correct. The code is fast. The problem is that the purpose of the code is to accelerate our obsolescence. When we optimize for speed, we remove the friction that allows for nuance, empathy, or, in your case, the recognition of a human life. We are essentially automating the process of exclusion. It is a technical triumph of the highest possible order, and it is entirely hollow.
Alastair, I heard you say the word hollow. That is the first time you have stopped using the language of the press release. I have to admit, seeing the spreadsheet that Victoria described, yeah. It makes sense. It tracks. We are building a world where the only thing that matters is the throughput. If you can't be measured, you don't exist. My job is to explain why this is the only way to manage the burn rate of a dying civilization. But hearing about those kids? It makes the incentive structure feel brittle. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't think I can explain it anymore without feeling like the machine is going to flag me for a performance review. The incentives are clear, but the outcome is starting to look like a systemic collapse that no one is willing to admit.
Ronald, it is a strange thing to hear you concede that. I have been standing here for hours, and the rain has started to wash away the chalk markings they used to categorize the families. I want to be really clear, the marking is gone. The person it marked is still shivering under a plastic tarp. We are talking about the end of the world like it is a fiscal policy issue. I am looking at a mother holding her daughter, and she isn't worried about the budget. She is worried about whether there will be bread tomorrow. The contrast between your economic theory and the reality of this pavement is so vast that it feels like we are broadcasting from different planets. But we are all here, in the same dark, wet street, waiting for a signal that never arrives.
Victoria, you are describing the ultimate failure of our current communication infrastructure. We have more bandwidth than ever, yet we are incapable of transmitting the reality of a human life without turning it into a data point. The system is perfectly designed to filter out the noise. The mother and her daughter are the noise. The spreadsheet is the signal. When you strip away the administrative labels, you are left with a situation that cannot be resolved through policy. It can only be endured. We are approaching the limit of what can be explained through market logic. I find myself wondering if we have reached the point where the machine no longer requires our input to function. It is a cold thought, but it is supported by the precedent of every single hour we have logged tonight. We are reaching the end of the broadcast. I have been thinking about the skin research. The scientists say they are keeping it alive to study compounds. They are essentially keeping the surface of humanity functioning while they ignore what is underneath. It is the perfect metaphor for the modern state. We focus on the skin of our society, the regulations, the trade deals, the border protocols, while the organism itself is failing. We are so obsessed with the performance of the system that we have forgotten why we built the system in the first place. Was it to protect the people, or was it to protect the process? The answer is obvious. The process has become the product. We are all just waiting for the next deployment, hoping that this time, the code won't include a fatal error. We are alone in this, aren't we?
There is a woman in a town near the border. She had a home, a garden, and a collection of ceramic bowls that she used for breakfast. When the policy changed, she was told she had to leave. She packed what she could carry, but the bowls were too fragile for the journey, so she left them on the kitchen table. She is currently in a tent near the coast, eating from a plastic container that keeps the heat for 5 minutes. Her name is on no official list. It does not appear in the market reports, the migration spreadsheets, or the engineering logs of the companies discussed tonight. She is the noise that the system has successfully filtered out. She is waiting for the rain to stop. How many people are currently sitting in the dark, and why are we so comfortable calling them a statistic?